Are you having a hard time getting listeners to your podcast? Is the bulk of your time spent on content creation, leaving you very little time for marketing or promotion? If you answered yes to either of those questions, then you should do what I did and reach out to Pod Boost Hub on Upwork. Pod Boost Hub brings you 100% organic promotion services. Pod Boost works around your budget and your needs. Contact them today on Upwork or even on Facebook. Pod Boost Hub. Your content, your audience, their responsibility. Hey there, listeners. Are you ready to elevate your energy game? Let me introduce you to Dubby, the energy drink brand on a mission to help you be better. Dubby is designed to give you the boost you need without the jitters or crashes that accompany many of the drinks supplied by Big Energy. Their drinks are sugar-free, calorie-free, and free from artificial colors or dyes. They launched with just one flavor, but thanks to the support of their loyal customers, they've grown to offer over 15 unique custom-made flavors. So if you're looking for a clean, delicious energy boost that helps you power through your day, look no further than Dubby. Join the movement and experience the difference for yourself. Visit WGG and use the code WW1POD for a 10% discount on your order. Remember, with Dubby, it's all about being better, one sip at a time. Alright, bills are paid. Let's get on with the show. I'm Henny B, and welcome to the World War I Stories podcast, where history comes alive through the voices of those who lived it. Some scenes in these stories may be too graphic for sensitive listeners, so listener discretion is advised. Today's episode, What Remains? The knock at the door was loud and urgent. Fiona tossed aside the garment she had been sewing and rushed to the door, hoping the noise wouldn't wake the children. She opened the door to find young Jamie Campbell, his face pale with fear and flushed from the cold. "Jamie, come in before you catch your death of cold," she exclaimed, ushering him inside. Jamie stepped into the small two-room home, his breath visible in the chilly air. "Miss Douglas, it's Ma. She's giving birth. We called for the midwife, but Ma wanted me to fetch you as well." "You left her alone?" Fiona asked, her tone sharp with concern. Jamie hung his head. "I had no choice. She needs someone, anyone who can help her." Fiona's expression softened. "It's all right, Jamie. This damn war took your pa and my Ewan. We have to help each other until they return." She glanced over at the pallet where her 12-year-old twin son slept peacefully. Jamie noticed her hesitation. "I'm 16 now, ma'am. I'll stay here with them," he offered. "Thank you, Jamie. I shouldn't be long." She quickly sat down to put on her boots. The snow was deep outside. Once she was ready, she grabbed her shawl and hurried out the door into the cold night. A walk that normally took Fiona 20 minutes now took 45 as she trudged through the deep snow. Finally, she reached the Campbell cottage. Smoke drifted from the chimney and the snow had been cleared from the roof and entrance. Jamie had done well in his father's absence. Like many families, including her own, they were adjusting to the new normal with their men off in a distant land, fighting a war whose cause seemed unclear to those left behind. When she entered the small cabin, she found Iona Campbell sprawled out on the floor, her body covered in sweat that had made her nightgown practically transparent. Fiona's heart raced as she rushed to Iona's side. "Iona, can you hear me?" Fiona called out, gently shaking Iona's shoulder. Iona's eyes fluttered open, and with Fiona's assistance, she struggled to get her to her feet. "What were you doing on the floor?" Fiona asked, her voice filled with concern. Iona mumbled, "Wanted water," clearly weak and disoriented. Fiona supported her as they shuffled slowly to the small bed in the corner of the cabin. Once there, Fiona helped Iona lay down, tugging a blanket around her to keep her warm. "You need to rest," Fiona said softly, brushing a damp strand of hair away from Iona's forehead. She could feel the heat radiating from Iona's feverish body and knew she needed to act quickly. Fiona hurried to the kitchen area, fetching a basin of fresh water and a clean cloth. She returned to Iona's side and dipped the cloth into the cool water, gently dabbing Iona's face and neck. "We need to bring down this fever," Fiona murmured, more to herself than to Iona. She continued to cool Iona's body with the damp cloth, praying silently for the fever to break soon. As she worked, Fiona spotted a small kettle on the stove and decided to brew some herbal tea. She knew it was important to keep Iona hydrated. Once the water was heated, she carefully poured it into a cup and helped Iona take small sips, hoping the warm liquid would provide some relief. "Just hold on, Iona," Fiona said softly, sitting beside her friend and continuing her gentle ministrations. "We'll get through this together." The hours passed slowly, but eventually the head crowned, and Fiona attempted to deliver the baby. She heard the door open behind her, and an unfamiliar voice said, "Oh my, here, let me help." A woman Fiona did not know knelt next to her. She was a pretty woman, but older, with dark hair streaked with gray and crow's feet bookending her eyes. "Who are you?" Fiona asked, her voice trembling. The woman focused on the task at hand, deftly taking the head of the baby from Fiona's shaking hands and gently nudging her aside. "Marianne Sinclair, I'm a midwife. Jamie told me to come early this morning, but I couldn't get away. Then the snow was so deep it took me forever to get here." Marianne worked with practiced efficiency, her calm demeanor providing a much-needed sense of relief for Fiona. In a daze, Fiona watched as Marianne seemingly shoved her hands deep into Iona and pulled the baby out. Marianne said something, but Fiona couldn't make out the words through her exhausted haze. The midwife looked at her and spoke again. "How long has she been dead?" The words sank in like a large rock in thick mud, very slowly. When they finally seeped into her consciousness, Fiona's brows furrowed and her jaw dropped. "What? Who? The baby is dead?" Marianne held the baby and took scissors from her satchel to cut the cord. She slapped its backside and the baby started to wail. Not the baby, the mother. When did she die? Fiona had not noticed the silence from Iona. She had not noticed the lack of pushing or that the sweat had stopped seeping from her pores. She had noticed none of it. But now, looking down, she could tell. Iona lay there, still as can be, her eyes closed, her clothing soft with sweat and blood. Her chest was no longer heaving, her breath was no longer labored. She was gone. It had been hours since Fiona had left the twins asleep and Jamie at the hearth. Now the sun was slanting low through the windows when she pushed open the cabin door, her boots soaked through and her limbs aching from the strain of the morning. The twins were up, whispering to each other over a half-finished bowl of one-day-old porridge. Jamie was curled at the foot of their bed, one arm draped over a folded blanket, fast asleep. She closed the door softly, setting her shawl and boots aside. Her body screamed for rest, but she approached the bed and laid a hand gently on Jamie's shoulder. He startled awake, eyes wide. "Miss Douglas!" She crouched beside him. "Jamie, I don't know how to tell you this. Your mother didn't make it." The words were simple, but she could see that they hit like a stone. His mouth opened, but nothing came. He sat up slowly, eyes glassy, then stumbled to his feet and out the door before Fiona could stop him. She let him go. There were no words that would matter now. 2 hours later, Fiona was the one sleeping. She had collapsed onto the narrow cot in the corner, one arm thrown across her face, the fatigue of the day pressing down hard. The front door flung open with a force that jolted her awake. "Miss Douglas," Jamie said, breathless. She stood, blinking in the dimming light. He stood there, red-cheeked from the cold, a bundled mass in his arms. The baby. Fiona sat up sharply. Jamie, what is it? I went to check on the cottage, he said, his voice shaking. I thought I don't know, just be there. But she was still there, the midwife. I saw her, out back. She had the baby wrapped in a cloth. She was digging a hole behind the barn. Fiona's mouth went dry. What? Why? I ran at her, asked her what she was doing. She dropped everything and ran, didn't even look back. He looked down at the child in his arms, barely swaddled. He was cold, so cold, but alive. Fiona reached for the baby, her hands trembling now. She touched the little face, pale but warm against her palm. Alive. She was gonna bury the baby in the snow? But why? We need to find a nursemaid, she whispered. Tonight, if we can. First thing in the morning, if not. Jamie nodded. He looked older now than he had the day before. Fiona rose and wrapped the baby tighter. You did right, Jamie. You did right by your ma. He didn't answer, just stepped forward and leaned against her for a moment. Silent. They stood there, in the quiet, the twins watching from across the room as the snow deepened outside. Winter passed slowly, leaving behind damp earth and brittle memories. The baby, whom Jamie had named Elsie after his grandmother, was now a fixture in the small home. She often wondered how Ewan would feel about that if he came home. Fiona kept a small cradle near the hearth, fashioned from the drawer of an old dresser, lined with spare wool and bits of cotton. The twins adored her. They took turns feeding her when she fussed, though more often than not it was Fiona who woke with her in the night. Some mornings she would find Jamie already at her door, his boots muddy and hair wind-blown, having walked from the camel cabin before sunrise. He never spoke much about that place anymore, but Fiona knew he kept it warm, cleaned it, waited there sometimes, in case his father came back. In case. She never questioned it. There were days Fiona would catch herself watching the road, listening for the beat of hooves or the bark of a dog that might mean a telegram was on its way. Or worse, a man in uniform. Ewan's letters had stopped just after Christmas. She told herself there was a reason. A postal delay, a misplaced batch. She never let the boys see her doubt. And so, the days turned over like pages. Laundry, mending, boiling potatoes, and bread crusts softened in milk. The war raged on in Europe, but here the struggle was quieter. It was survival, not in the trenches, but in the waiting. And Fiona waited. She waited with needle in hand and prayer in her throat. She waited with Jamie chopping wood outside and Elsie gurgling near the fire. She waited with the quiet ache of a woman whose heart was split across two names, Ewan and Elsie, and who loved both fiercely, though for different reasons. Mail was difficult to receive in the Scottish Highlands in normal times. Wartime and winter made it near impossible. But as spring approached, one finally came, and she read it to her boys, with Jamie looking on and Elsie garbling by the hearth in the makeshift cradle. My dearest Fiona and my lads, I'm writing this letter in October. Given that winter is upon us, I suspect you'll not receive it until the spring. Many things have happened over the last few months. Much of it you will read in the newsprint, or maybe I'll be able to tell the stories in person. I've been at a place in France called Verdun for the last 4 months, and I do not know how much longer I will be here. The conditions are terrible. The trenches are cold, damp, and often filled with water, and the rats get very large, some near the size of a cat. They eat what's left behind, and we do our best not to think too long about that. I was fortunate to be placed in a PALS battalion when I enlisted, which means I've served shoulder to shoulder with men I know from home. Friends, cousins, neighbors. It brings a bit of comfort to fight beside familiar faces, though that comfort has become harder to hold on to with each passing week. Fiona, I don't know how to write the next part. Angus Campbell, our neighbor, was with me, brave as ever, stubborn as always. He was by my side during the last push. We were trying to retake a trench the Germans had abandoned, or so we thought. It was chaos. Smoke, mud, shouting, all of it running together. He was ahead of me by a few steps when it happened. There was no time to call out, no time to pull him back. I stayed with him until the medics arrived, though I think he was already gone. He died with courage, and he died fighting. That pregnant wife and boy of his should be proud knowing he was a good man, a strong one. He didn't run. He didn't falter. He did his duty to the very last breath. I don't know how to tell Jamie that. I hope this letter will help. Tell him I said his father spoke of him often. Tell him to look after you and the twins. Tell him to keep the fire going and the snow shoveled from the path, and that his father would be proud of him. As for me, well, I am tired, but I press on, same as the rest. Every night I dream of home, of your broth on the fire and the boys' laughter, of the way your hands smell like soap and flour when you cradle my face. I long for the day I can write you from across a table instead of across a continent. With all my love, Ewan. She had read the letter aloud. When she looked up, Jamie was sobbing into his hands, and the twins were on either side of him, each with a hand on his shoulder. Fiona poured water from the kettle, her hands moving automatically, though her thoughts were elsewhere. Jamie sat at the table, arms folded tightly, eyes still red from the letter. The twins lingered by the hearth, unusually quiet. She turned and set a cup down in front of him. "Jamie," she said gently, "what do you mean to do?" He didn't answer right away, just stared at the steam curling from the cup. Then, "I'm going back to the cabin. That's where I belong. That's where Elise belongs." Fiona sat down across from him. "It's a hard thing, raising a child, especially on your own." "I know," he said, a flash of sorrow in his eyes. "But I have to try, for them. My dad built that cabin, planted the crops in the fields. My ma tended to the cabin and helped with the crops every year. When I got old enough, I helped too. Last fall, after Dad went to war, she helped me tend to the fields and complete the harvest. I owe it to them, to Elsie, and to myself to keep the place going." Fiona reached across the table and took his hand. "Let her stay here, just for now. I'll walk to the cabin each day, bring meals. You can come see her whenever you like. The twins can help you keep the place up, and you can still be a boy for a little longer." Jamie pulled his hand back. "I'm not a boy. Not anymore." His voice cracked, but he steadied it. "I appreciate what you've done, Miss Douglas, truly. But I'll be taking her home. I'll manage." Fiona nodded slowly, her throat tight. "All right," she said, "but I'm coming by each morning, whether you like it or not. Someone has to make sure the two of you eat." At this, Jamie managed the faintest smile. "And us too," one of the twins chimed in. "We'll help." "Of course we will," added the other. Jamie looked at all three of them, then down at Elsie sleeping in the cradle by the fire. "Thank you," he whispered. Fiona studied his face, so much older than 16, and knew there was no swaying him. "You're your father's son, Jamie Campbell," she said softly. He looked down at his hands, calloused from the harvest, still dirt-stained around the nails despite the season. "I just want to do right by them." She reached over and squeezed his fingers. "Then you will. But I meant what I said. I'll be there each morning. You'll need rest, and Elsie will need more than one pair of hands. The boys can chop wood and haul water." The twins nodded from across the room, solemn and sure. Jamie glanced towards the cradle. I'll be back for her after breakfast. Fiona nodded. We'll have something hot waiting. There was nothing more to say, just the quiet crackle of the fire and the weight of a promise shared between them. Spring gave way to summer, and summer faded into the first golden sighs of autumn. The rhythm of the days settled into something quiet but certain. Fiona and the twins kept their promise. Each morning, after breakfast and before the sun had fully crested the ridge, they set off down the winding path toward the Campbell cabin. It was a long walk, more than a mile, but they knew every step by now. The crooked stone, the hollowed tree where the birds always nested, the fence post that leaned just slightly too far west. Fiona always carried a basket filled with whatever she'd managed the previous evening. Boiled oats, fresh bread, sometimes broth or greens from her modest garden. The twins took turns hauling kindling or extra wool. Jamie met them at the edge of the path most mornings, Elsie cradled in the crook of his arm, already babbling before they reached the porch. Inside, Fiona would busy herself with the baby, now nearly walking, curious as ever. She'd sweep the hearth, tidy the wash, set a stew to simmer if there was enough to spare. Meanwhile, the twins joined Jamie out back, helping in the rows, pulling weeds, turning soil, hammering loose boards. Their laughter carried across the field like birdsong, lightening the weight of the world just enough. Some weeks they traded places. Jamie would rise early and carry Elise to Fiona's cottage instead, especially when a storm had blown through or the roof needed mending. He always offered to help with the firewood, though Fiona often caught him eyeing the kitchen, eager to lift the lid from whatever pot was cooking. It was a strange little arrangement born of grief and duty, but Fiona thought more than once that it was working. Not perfectly, not without fatigue, but there was a steadiness to it now, like stitches in a mended hem. She found comfort in the familiar moments, Elsie tugging at the edge of her apron, the twins teaching her how to whistle. Jamie walking beside her in silence, both of them thinking of those who had not yet come home. They did what they could with what they had. And Fiona, more than anything, held on to the quiet truth that though the war still raged far away, here, in this patch of soil between two cabins, life was managing to grow. The fire crackled low, casting soft orange light across the walls of the little cabin. The twins had come home earlier, muddy to the knees and too tired to speak. Fiona had helped them out of their boots, shushed them towards their bedrolls, and now they lay curled beneath patchwork quilts, breaths slow and even. It had been a long day, longer still for boys trying to carry the weight of men. Fiona sat near the hearth, apron smudged, her sewing basket tucked beneath the bench. A pile of potatoes sat beside her, and she peeled them one by one into the enamel basin, the skins curling like ribbon to the floor. Tomorrow would be another long day. Jamie had plans to cut back the hedges along the west field. The boys would help. Fiona would bring bread and stew and make sure no one worked on an empty stomach. It was what she could do. She picked up another potato. The peeler scraped softly. Then, a sound. The door. It opened, not with force, but gently, as if uncertain. The faintest whisper of wind curled through the crack, brushing across her cheek, lifting the edge of her hair. She didn't stand right away, just froze. The potato dropped from her hand. Then the knife. She rose slowly, the chair legs scraping against the stone floor. Her hands flew to her face. "Ewan," she whispered, and then she wept, not with sorrow, not with fear, but with the joy so sharp it hurt. This has been World War I Stories, Tales Beyond the Trenches. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show wherever you find this podcast, and don't forget to throw us a comment and a rating. We are on Facebook. Just search and like the official World War I Stories page. You can also join me on Blue Sky, where I go by the handle WW1Stories_HennyB. World War I Stories is now featured on Rabbit in Red Radio, with new episodes streaming Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. They also have all episodes available on demand. Visit Rabbit in Red Radio for this and many other independent podcasts. And last but not least, would you like your name read on the show? Become a producer by contributing to our Patreon at patreon.com/World War I Stories. I'm very grateful to everyone who downloads and listens to this show. I'm Henny B, and see you next time on World War I Stories.